Hey guys, what's good? It's the Tominator, and in this one I wanted to shine some spotlight on the old-timers out there. Some of the real OGs of the sport who were going strong for decades and were able to age gracefully. Because the unfortunate truth is that many of these modern-day mass monsters are dropping off like flies. But it's refreshing to remind ourselves that bodybuilding, even at the pro levels, doesn't have to be dangerous or unhealthy in the long term. So this video is going to be celebrating some of the top bodybuilders throughout history who aged the best. And this list is by no means exhaustive. I'm sure there are others I neglected or otherwise forgot to mention, so when we get to the end, let me know in the comments if there's someone who got left out. Who knows, if there's enough missing, I might even go back and do a part 2. But for now, let's kick it off with a name we should all be fairly familiar with, since he's been around forever. Of course, we're talking about Dexter Jackson. Nicknamed the Blade early on in his career for his razor-sharp definition, Dexter might just as well be called the Ageless Wonder, since he's been competing at the highest levels for 2 decades and counting. Louis Marco used to liken him to a vampire because of his seeming immortality, and it's not that much of a stretch because at 49 years old, Dexter has got to be the most consistently excellent bodybuilder of all time at this point. I mean, just look at his resume. He's won more IFBB contests than anyone else in history, including a record-setting 5 Arnold Classics, or 9 in total if you count the ones outside the USA, an Olympia title in 2008, and a second-place finish at the 2015 Mr. Olympia at age 45. And while it's true that he's finally beginning to show signs of wear and tear as of 2018, with the legs fading and the waist inevitably thickening, Dex is still a prime example of how great you can look well into your 40s with the right genetics and a smart training style that minimizes risk of injury. I made an entire video about a year ago where Dexter himself reveals one of the biggest keys to his remarkable longevity, so you can go check that one out to hear it straight from the horse's mouth. Next up, we have Gary Strydom, who primarily competed in the IFBB during the 80s. Gary was known for fantastic shoulder and chest development. Here he's seen doing battle with the likes of Lee Haney and Lee Labrada at the 1988 Mr. Olympia. In the early 90s, he would leave the IFBB to join forces with Vince McMahon in his ill-fated WBF, or World Bodybuilding Federation. Strydom would become the first and only champion of this short-lived organization. Fast forward to 2006, and this is the major reason why we're featuring Gary Strydom in this video, because here at the 2006 Colorado Pro, he would have been about 46, 47 years old, and in arguably even better condition than what he usually brought back in his heyday. The guy seemingly didn't skip a beat after barely competing for over a decade, and is a great example of how working out and keeping fit can prolong a youthful appearance. Tony Pearson is another bodybuilder who's still in outstanding shape even today in his early 60s. Nicknamed the Michael Jackson of bodybuilding, for obvious reasons, Tony had arguably the best stomach vacuum of all time and was a highly entertaining poser. Although he retired from competition relatively young in his mid-30s back in 1994, Tony kept on training and maintained his physique. So much so that he was able to stage a successful comeback 20 years later in 2014 and capture a couple of first-place trophies at the NABA USA at the age of 57. Here's some high-quality guest posing footage at Muscle Beach from the same year, so this would have been right around the time of that NABA competition, and as you can see, he's still got the cuts, he's still got the shape, and he can still pull off that incredible vacuum shot. So that's Tony Pearson out there getting it done, showing us that age ain't nothing but a number. Okay, next we've got Robby Robinson, aka the Black Prince. One of the most criminally overlooked aesthetic icons of the golden era, Robinson had a physique that has truly stood the test of time. With a professional career bookended by wins dating back to the 1975 Mr. America contest all the way up to the 2000 Masters Mr. Olympia, Robinson proved you can continue to excel well into your 50s, even at the upper echelons. Robinson had a tremendous V-taper and arguably the best biceps ever. Just look at those peaks. Here he is at the 1997 Masters Olympia. Keep in mind the guy was born in 1946, so he would have been about 51 years old here, but had a body 99% of us 20 or 30-somethings would kill for. And never mind just competition, this guy still looks great even well into retirement at the ripe old age of 70. And now we go from the Black Prince to the Black Panther. And no, we're not talking about Wakanda Forever. This is the French legend Serge Nubret, arguably the most aesthetic bodybuilder to ever live. Well, would you guess the guy is 50 years old here? This footage is from the 1987 NABA Worlds, where Serge appears to have aged like fine wine. The muscular definition is there, the shape is still there, and dare I say, that midsection is better than almost any you'll find on an Olympia stage today. Well, in the men's open category at least. About the only indications of aging are the loose skin in the lower back area and the downsized thighs, which aren't as ripped as the upper body. Other than that, this physique positively radiates with old school class. In one of my older videos on profiling the archetypes of aesthetics, I said something along the lines of how Serge Nubret was probably the best looking bodybuilder ever when it came to just standing around. Not in poses per se, but just kind of standing there, semi-relaxed on a beach or whatnot, and I think even into his 5th decade that still holds true here. Nubret's body was akin to a classic exotic sports car, and just like a vintage Ferrari, it held its value over time and still looked incredible even decades later. Vince Taylor's another bodybuilder who competed well into middle age. Here he is, pictured next to Big Ron in 2006 at age 50, and arguably looking even better. Not as massive, true, but cleaner lines and a better shoulder-to-waist ratio. Of course, when they turn around, he stood no chance, and the scorecards reflected that, but still, a mighty impressive physique for a 50-year-old, no two ways about it. The 1992 Arnold Classic champ also happens to hold the record for the most Masters Olympia wins with 5, which was a separate category for older competitors over the age of 40. Even at 60, he's still armed and dangerous. Just look at those guns, man. And finally, perhaps the best example of a bodybuilder who defied the aging process is Mr. Albert Beckles. The English bodybuilder was born way back in 1930 and is famous precisely for competing well into his 50s and beyond, even placing runner-up to Lee Haney in 1985 at the not-so-tender age of, get this, 55. Talk about crazy. It's pretty much unheard of for someone that old to still be performing at this level. Even Dexter Jackson, I think it's safe to say, isn't going to be able to do that in 5 or 6 years' time. I mean, Beckles was top 2 in the world and beating people who were 20 to 30 years younger. He was literally old enough to be their dad. With his peaked biceps, impressive vacuum, and rippling back muscles, Beckles was a force to be reckoned with and probably displayed the most exceptional longevity in all of bodybuilding. He competed in over 100 contests throughout his lengthy career, and even holds the record for the oldest competitor to win a pro show, the 1991 Niagara Falls Pro Invitational, at the age of 61. Talk about muscle maturity. If that's not a mind-blowing feat, then I don't know what is. Never mind the golden era, this guy was repping the golden years, yo. Okay, corny jokes aside, that's gonna do it for this one, guys. Keep in mind I was mainly focusing on those bodybuilders who continued to actually compete well into their later years, which is why some other big names like Lee Labrada, Frank Zane, Jay Cutler, and Arnold himself were not featured. But if there's anybody else I missed who fits this criteria, please let us know in the comments below. And of course, feel free to drop a like and subscribe for more if you enjoyed. Also, don't forget to follow me on Instagram. I recently got an account and occasionally drop hints about upcoming videos and stuff like that, so make sure to check me out on there now too. Until next time, homies, this has been the Tominator signing out, and I'll be back.